Okay, good evening, everybody beyond the buy box crew. We are live. First of all, let me apologize. We are outside of our normal time slot, but hopefully you guys are going to forgive me considering who I have sat next to me virtually, not physically. That would be quite impressive given our separate locations and where we are right now. So this evening, guys, I am joined by multi-8-figure seller, Watch Me Amazon's very, very own Larry Lubarsky. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Beyond the Buy Box and to the UK, essentially. Well,
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me virtually to the UK. It is a pleasure to be here.
Have you been to the UK before? I assume virtually, but whether physically, who knows?
So I've been to the UK virtually for many, many years. I've
Yeah.
always had an affinity for all things British, and I always wanted to go to the UK. I've never gotten the chance to actually go there physically. However, as many people who have been following me for a long time know, that I actually started my business selling in the UK, and I built up a big US to UK business first before I dove into my own domestic market. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm a big proponent of Amazon in the UK and all throughout Europe. I think it is a tremendous, largely untapped market in comparison to the US. And yeah, happy to be here and talk shop.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Well, thanks everyone. Everyone's piling in. We're just going to give it a few minutes to let people join us because we're a couple of minutes late in joining on, but kind of started digging deep with Larry on a couple of conversations. And I could have just kept you to myself for the hour, to be perfectly honest, but I thought I wouldn't be selfish and I would share our conversations for you guys to come on board. So we got people from Ireland joining us, Rosie, we've got Cindy, we've got Johnny, who's one of the also owners of this group, and also all of our training as well. There's loads of people coming in, so I'm literally trying to keep on top. I can't say hello individually to everyone, unfortunately, but welcome, guys. Hayden's joined us. Carla's joined us. Welcome, Leon, Simon, to here. Good to have you here. Sylvia from Germany. Yeah, we are really the full UK European experience
Amazing.
at the moment.
Is Johnny your business partner for the Amazon business as well?
Not the Amazon business. So we have our training company together, and we are currently building some inventory management software together as well. So
amazing. So soon we will be competitors.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But do you know what? I'm a really big fan. I am that person that, I would rather work in cohesion with our competitors, and while we're always able to offer value to everyone, and there's always more than enough market to go around for everyone. That's the way I see it.
I feel the same way. Same.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to hear. We got Scotland as well. So yeah, a couple of people from Germany joining us. So welcome everybody. It's really, really great to have you here. So let me just run through the kind of unscheduled order of what we're going to do today. For anyone, and I don't really think there is going to be anyone that doesn't know Larry, I'm going to give Larry the opportunity to give us a kind of brief history of his Amazon selling journey, if that's okay. For anyone who's been living under a rock that doesn't know who you are, then the main reason for me asking you here this evening is to be able to go through some of these upcoming kind of logistical shipping changes, some big Amazon fee changes that are coming to the US platform. As I said to you previously, we have sellers that sell in the US platform, and we're mixed up of European, UK and US sellers. And I think the big question, which I wouldn't expect anyone to answer, so we will come on to that a bit later, is whether this stuff is going to be replicated into the UK.
I already know it is.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
okay.
I know it is. So the one thing that the UK has going for it is, if Amazon does force multiple splits on all the sellers, fortunately the UK is not that big. So if you have to ship to the other side of the country, it's not the same as doing it in the US. But the UK and the European market largely has always lagged behind the US market 1 or 2 years, depending on what Amazon is doing in the US. It eventually and inevitably finds its way to the UK, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that pretty much was, where most of us, were sort of thinking. We were probably hoping and praying it wasn't going to go into that direction. But let's face it, generally, whatever happens in the US, it's that classic, kind of example, whenever the US sneezes, the world catches a cold. And it's exactly the same with Amazon when it comes to the changes that are there. So before we dig into that, and then I want to talk about the 2D workflow software as well, which has been really revolutionary in its field in terms of what it's been able to do in the shipping process of sending goods to Amazon. So we've got a lot to cover this, guys. I'll try and bring in comments when you can. Feel free to ask questions as we go. There is loads of you on tonight, so we will do our best, but obviously we want to make sure we are respectful as much as possible, or as we can be, of Larry's time. So we'll try and be quick and concise, which is something I kind of struggle with a lot of the time. I'm a big talker, as most of these guys know. Oh, we could be here till midnight. Well, at least it'll be a civilized time for you anyway to be able to do that. That's fine. Okay, so just before we dive into all the other side of it, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, I mean, like I said, big personality, big seller in the US space, and you are known to so many people that have been watching this would have got experience from you, would have got gold nuggets, learned from you over the years. But for anyone that doesn't, would you mind just giving us that brief history of yourself and what caused you to get into this, and all the usual kind of intro?
Sure. No pressure with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm off. See you later.
So yeah, I mean, I've been selling on Amazon since 2011. For those who don't know me, I am a product of immigrants, first generation family that came here to the States, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Before I was ever looking into Amazon, I was a stockbroker for many, many years. That business had its ups and downs, ultimately didn't work out for me. And I kind of found myself in a financial midlife crisis, for lack of a better term. I was 30 years old. I was broke, destitute. I was forced to, with my tail tucked between my legs, forced to go live at home with my mom and just really reevaluate what the next step and phase of my life would be, what my career would be, what I would do. And I didn't know anything about Amazon. I didn't even know Amazon existed. I was just literally looking for any kind of odds and ends jobs that I can take just to pay my bills and, make ends meet and all of that kind of stuff. And when looking for a job, I reached out to one of my friends, kind of like an acquaintance who I went to high school with. And this was someone who they had a optical shop and they were selling glasses online and they were doing eBay at the time. And he was hiring someone just to help with their customer service, shipping out some boxes, answering phones, doing some computer work, that kind of stuff. So I went to work with him, pretty much doing eBay. That's how I got my start. He would have the optical store. They would have a large inventory of different eyeglasses, sunglasses. And my job would be taking pictures, making them look nice and creating listings and selling those listings on eBay. And then basically dealing with the full gamut of eBay, dealing with customers, doing the packing, doing the shipping, doing the customer service, doing all of that, while at the same time doing customer service for his optical store. It was basically like a 9-to-5 thing. So this buddy who had an optical store, and he also had a beauty salon at the time, and he started getting into selling the products that he was retailing in the optical and in the beauty salon. He started selling them online. He started doing that on eBay, which I was helping with. But at the same time, he was also building a Amazon business and selling those products on Amazon in the US. He was selling the eyewear and he was selling beauty supplies and stuff like that on Amazon. And he came to me and he said, you know what, my hands are kind of full. I'm doing Amazon here in the US. There's also this huge untapped market in the UK called Amazon UK. Here's how it works. He showed me the calculator. He gave me the basic 5-minute explanation of what Amazon FBA is. Here's how the ranks work. Here's how you list a product. Here's what we buy it for. Here's what we can sell it for. You enter the ASIN in the calculator. There's your profit. Larry, you figure it out. You can run the UK business. I'll put up the funds. I'll put up, everything that I have in terms of the connections and the stores and the wholesale relationships and all of that. You do literally everything else. And at the end of every month, we'll figure out what the profits are and we'll give you a third of the profit revenue sharing split. But catch is, You have to do it outside of your regular 9 to 5 job, nights, weekends, stuff like that. So I said, no problem. At that time, I was just hungry for work. I was hungry to make money. And then for probably 2 years straight, every night, every weekend, I was doing product research and finding products that we can get from wholesalers that we had access to because of his 2 retail brick and mortar stores here in the US, listing those products in the UK. It was also a tremendous help that at the time that we started, the conversion of pounds to the dollar was about 1.75.
Yeah.
So that made everything just have a ridiculous profit margin. It was like nuts. We were literally buying products that were just, I can't even tell you. We were buying, like, for example, a $5 bottle of shampoo that would cost us $5 US. And because these products are rare, harder to come by in the UK, because they're being sold for pounds, we would have items that we would buy for $5 US and we're selling them for 20, 25 pounds. And if you do the number on that, it's like a 300-400% profit on all of these items. And this was also going back to 2011. So the competition was a lot less. Amazon FBA, as a lot of you veterans would know, was kind of like the wild west back then. No
That's
complaints.
what we call it. Wild West.
Yep, not many Amazon issues. Just, just smooth sailing, for lack of a better term. And yeah, I spent the next couple of years building up that business. I think within our first 12 months, due to this amazing untapped marketplace, we built a 7-figure business pretty quickly. I was able to leave the customer portion part of that job at about a year into it and focus full time on the Amazon business and just working off of building that up and getting a third of the profits, and the rest is history. I was able to turn that into the business that I am still working on right now.
Wow, absolutely. And that is predominantly, you are still an Amazon seller. You create content. Like I said, you have your software, but like you said it, you're first and foremost a seller. That is your main
Correct.
Thing of everything that you do, which is, I was talking about this to someone earlier on one of our other live streams. We had 2 Section 3s and a deactivation in the US market last year. And, it cost us a lot of money. And I joked at some point that, I would become a full-time guru and, like a legit full-time guru who doesn't sell on Amazon, and give up the selling because I was fed up with Amazon at that time. And a couple of people thought I was being serious. But when you have been doing Amazon for as long as you have, when you've been selling for as long as you have, it's very hard. It's like a love affair, right? It's a real love-hate relationship that develops with Amazon. And I would find it really hard to kick it to the curb, even with all of the changes that have taken place over the last, I've been a seller for the last 7 years, so I didn't even experience, the even wilder west before that. But
it was even wilder before I started.
Yeah. Oh, really? Absolutely. Were you around? Because when did FBA come in? Was it 2010?
I think it was before. No, it was before then. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it wasn't brand new when I started in 2011. I think it might go back as far as 2008, but don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure, but it was definitely after I had started.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple of comments here. A few people have said, talk about the Rosie, talk about the wild west of Amazon. Yeah, good old times, definitely, for sure. Someone says there, I think, oh no, that's Hayden. He says, Larry was the first Amazon YouTuber I ever saw when I was getting into Amazon 4.5 years ago. There you go. So absolutely, good times to be able to come back and, see someone that inspired you at the start. Absolutely. So, when we talk about, having that big kind of Amazon business, and I always say this to anyone that's watching, for someone of your size, your experience, and how much that you've sold, I always like to try and be able to plug the gaps between someone like yourself and obviously sellers who are either just starting out, or sellers that have been doing it for a long time who are not a multi-8-figure seller. So we always like to try and keep it as relatable as possible, but it's just everything you do is the same, as these guys, but it's just on a bigger scale, right? And it is possible with Amazon, you can achieve everything. Yeah. what I wanted to ask, with all of the changes that you've seen over the years, with the COVID pandemic, everything that we've gone through, with the changes that are going to be coming, is the opportunity still the same now as it was then? I know that that's a very loaded question because obviously the market has changed and everything like that. But do you believe someone could come in now to this market and replicate your success?
Yes, but they're going to need certain things to do it. And when we talk about scale, the one relatable scale that I think people should relate to is the most important scale in my success is the fact that I've been doing this since 2011. So we're
Yeah.
going on like 13, 14 years. That's it. Like, I wish I can come on and give you guys some like secret hack or secret, trick that's going to do it. But that's what's going to do it. If you just commit yourself, and, there's obviously other things. You need capital and you need to work really hard and you need to be smart, and all those things kind of go without saying. But the most important thing is the time. You meet in this business a lot of people who have been selling on Amazon for maybe a year or two, and a lot of those people fail, or they don't succeed, or they don't get to where they had hoped or where they thought they were going to go. But it's very rare that you meet someone who has stuck it out for 7, 8, 9 years and who doesn't have some level of what almost anyone would consider a very high level of success in this business. So that's really the secret. And like I said, of course, there are other things that come into it. Obviously, we had some investors. We put a lot of money back into our business. We took loans and capital and all of that, which is one of the things that are required to grow a big business. But the main thing is just working on it full time for north of 10 years. That's going to get you to where you want to go ultimately. Is the opportunity still there? Yes, it's a different type of opportunity. That opportunity always changes. Is it a lot harder and a lot more competitive than it is today than it was in 2011? 100%. I would be lying if it wasn't. There are a lot more tools though right now. Like, for example, when I was starting in 2011, outside of the FBA calculator, there was no Keepa, or at least I didn't know what Keepa was. There was no list scanning tools or software, or at least I didn't know what they were until a couple of years down the line into my business. Everything was manual. There was no one really making content. There was no gurus, whether, a genuine guru or a bullshit guru. There was really nothing. So you kind of just learned by doing. So yes, I think the opportunity is still there. It's different. You're going to get knocked down a lot. You're going to face a lot of different challenges. You're going to have to persevere it. But one of the things that I always tell everyone, just like any real business, any business endeavor that you're taking, there's a saying, 90% of businesses fail. It's probably no different with our business. I would probably even say that the numbers are a little more favorable in our business, but that's just what it is. And it's not because Amazon is hard. It's not because FBA is hard, even though it is. It's just the nature of humans, the nature of entrepreneurship. A lot of people aren't cut out to be entrepreneurs. Someone's more cut out to have a regular job, or to be a doctor, or to be a lawyer where you don't have your own practice. But for people who are entrepreneurial personality types, if you do that and you put in the time and you have the capital and the effort to invest, as long as you can combine all of those things together, it's almost impossible to fail, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think longevity, the longer you can be in it, anyone that I know is around from the same time that I was a seller, which, to be honest, is, I don't know, 5%, maybe something like that, of the people that were around at the time. And, there's been such an evolution through the pandemic of the influx of new sellers that have been coming on, that literally, I always say, during the same, and I'm sure I wasn't actually selling in the States throughout the whole pandemic at that time. So I wasn't aware. I'm assuming it was exactly the same as it was here, that you could literally package up a pile of poop and put it on Amazon and it would sell during that period of time. You literally, as long as you had the stock, it would sell. And, because that's obviously what it was like here. But with managing all of that and all of the changes that have taken place, especially over the last couple of years post pandemic, where we've seen the world return to normal, we've seen not demand drop off of an Amazon, but maybe, I don't know, more saturation, but certainly post pandemic demand has dropped off. How do you manage your risk within a business of your size with those changes afterwards, ensuring that you're not over leveraged if you are over leveraged, and changing interest rates, where predominantly investment money was very cheap to borrow for a period of time versus now? I'm really sorry. I realized there was like 20 questions in there. So pick out what
That's
you want.
okay. So so just to address so one of the things I like about our business model and wholesale in general and kind of Amazon in general is you're not tying up all your funds into any one specific product. Your products are spread out. We have, thousands of different products in our catalog. It is very common to purchase something and it goes to shit, or you have a brand or you have a product line that goes to shit. It's very, very common, but it's a small portion, small fraction, small percentage of what you have. And that's what makes the business risky, but at the same time, not risky at all. But there's also, when selling on Amazon, or, the few of us who are brave enough to decide that we want this to be our full-time career profession, you just have to get used to dealing with the facts that things are going to change. They're going to change fast. Amazon is going to knock you down a lot. And when that happens, you either have to deal with it, you have to adapt, you have to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just keep moving forward. And like one of the biggest examples of that I can give, and this is because you mentioned in the UK post-COVID. So from about 2011 all the way up to about COVID time, my business, I would say, is probably 70, 80% UK-based business. My percentage of US business was actually very, very small. We were focusing on the UK so much because less competition, less Amazon rules. And, there are products that you would buy and send here in the States where you would be making a 20-cent profit on it. In the UK and Europe, you were making a £5 profit on it. Yeah. You were making 10 cents here, you were 10% here, you were making 90% there. But as always, all good things come to an end. One of the big things that killed our business, because essentially my UK business did get killed, for lack of a better term, over the last couple of years. It first started with Brexit. So and this is not for everyone who sells in UK. This is specifically for the model of going from US to the UK. So the pound in relation to the dollar, that completely went to shit. When a lot of your catalog is based on profits because you're getting $1.75 per every pound, and then the pound drops to 1.10 versus 1.75, instantly in that drop, 50, 60, 70% of your catalog gone. Products that you would buy last month, can't buy them this month because the market changed. So what can you do? There's nothing you can do about it. Find more products, do more research. You were selling 1,000 SKUs before, and now you have 300 SKUs. What can you do? Nothing besides look for more SKUs. Then Brexit came. We were big on the pan-EU program, but we were only shipping all of our stuff into Britain. When Brexit happened, that made it a lot more difficult and a lot more complex to get products into the whole of Europe outside of the UK. So that kind of killed the business. And then when COVID came along, exporting or importing stuff into the UK got a lot more strict. That killed the business. There was a period of time right when COVID first broke out where they say, hey, you know what? Amazon's great. Everything's selling on Amazon, but you can't ship. Like UPS wasn't taking our shipments.
Yeah,
of
course, I remember that.
So, and what happened? My business went from probably 10, 12, 13 million at its peak sales in the UK down to 1, 2, 3 million pounds per sale. And you have two options: either pack it up and leave, or start focusing on what other opportunities you have. I had a transition period in my business where we had to kind of take a step back away from the UK, focus more on the US. It definitely was a learning experience, and we had to do a lot of things differently because the markets are so different. But yeah, if you can survive that and not pack up and leave, eventually you get to a place where everything works out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. The amount of people I've interviewed, I've been doing this podcast for about 3 years, something like that. The amount of people, I think I can honestly say that you are the first person that had a negative impacting due to COVID and a retraction of your business. But presumably that gave you an opportunity when you've been doing this as long as, you have. And I was talking about this to someone earlier. So, when you see these challenges and these evolutions and the changes in front of you, when you've been doing it for as long as you have and you've navigated it, you've got through it previously, it's more a case of looking at it as an opportunity sometimes instead of looking at it as, oh God, got to pick myself up. Like I said, I think there was a hint of the Rocky quote there about getting hit, and kind of keep on moving forward. Does that contribute to your success even more? Presumably you switched focus to the US at that time, saw that as the opportunity to move back into the UK, the local market for yourself.
And I wasn't looking at it as a great opportunity. We were obviously gutted. We had a
Yeah.
huge UK business which went to shit. But I mean, again, we couldn't do anything about it. It's either quit
No.
and find something else to do, or just figure out how to make the other opportunities that you have work for you. And they required more capital. The numbers were different. The type of products that we're selling were different. The type of work that we're doing now in the US is different than what we were doing initially in the UK. So to be honest, I wasn't looking at it as this great opportunity. I was just kind of looking at it as something that I had to do if I wanted to carry on and continue in this business. And that's, what you have to do in any business and in Amazon, whether it's this particular scenario that I laid out, or whether it's someone selling in Europe, or whether it's someone selling in the States, or whether you have a, huge supplier or a brand that you're working with that is responsible for 60-70% of your sales. And then one day you're going to wake up and they're just gone. And then you're not going to look at it, oh, well, now I have a great opportunity to rebuild. No, you're going to look at it like, oh, shit, this is horrible. This sucks. But what can I do now? Nothing besides for putting your head down and figuring it out. And like I said, if you work hard enough and you're smart and you have that entrepreneurial personality type, which is a prerequisite to being an entrepreneur in any field, then I think you'll make it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to some of the questions, but something I picked up on there, and it's very much that thrive or survive kind of, being able to switch from that. Is that a personal skill that you have? Do you find that easy? Do you find it difficult? And if you could pick, I mean, obviously that's a silly question, not if you could pick, how do you personally respond better as an entrepreneur in survival mode or thrive mode?
I mean, it's tough to put into words the answer to that. So I don't know if I have a particular skill, or if there was something I learned or something that made me adept to adapting. It's just kind of when you have no other choice. Like I wouldn't, like, before I started doing like content or anything like that, I would literally, if my Amazon business closed down, I would have no idea what I would be doing next. So I was like forced in a position where I had to figure it out. I don't have a plan B. It's kind of like the old adage of, burning your bridges when you get to the island to make sure you don't retreat. So it's not a particular skill or something like that. It's just there are certain people that have that in them. It's part of the entrepreneurial personality type, that just some people who tend to be the ones who succeed in business have that in them. And I don't know if it's something that you can teach. It's something that you can explain to people that, hey, you get knocked down, you get up, you keep going. It all sounds logical and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know what gave me that, aside from the fact that many times in life I've had not many options besides for just give up or keep going.
It's really interesting, and I'm really sorry, guys. I can't see whose names predominantly are coming up. It's the stupid StreamYard thing. It never, no matter how much they click into it, it still doesn't reveal their names. Sorry. So, probably a silly question. No such thing as a silly question. We know that, guys. I'm talking about that. Speaking about entrepreneurship, this person said, sometimes I personally wonder if I do have that kind of kind of mindset. And I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, whether or not it's natural, whether or not it's character, whether or not it's, experience, business maturity. I don't know what it is. I don't know
It's
if it's
all
just,
of that.
yeah.
It's all of that. It's definitely also luck because, for example, a part of your business can go to shit and you might want to rebuild, but you might not have the capital. You might not have the connections. You might have some kind of, extenuating circumstances that prevent that from happening. So luck is definitely part of the equation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we talk about luck, but kind of err on the side of that a little bit because you've got to be in the right place at the right time, and you put yourself there though as well. So it's an element of, I don't know, probably extended luck. Essentially, there is, people that were selling and doing well at the pandemic were there and doing it because they put themselves in that position, essentially. So I think there's an element of that as well. We've also got a couple of Gary V fans who saw you with Gary V. Apparently, I must admit, I haven't seen that. So apologies. Hayden's asking me, what was it like to meet him? So yeah, I have to indulge that question.
Yeah, it was pretty cool and surreal. I mean, this was maybe 1 or 2 years into just me making content on social media. And he had some kind of a contest where it was like you get to shadow him for a day. And I won,
Oh,
and I
wow.
spent the day with him. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
Ah, awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to go. Is that still available now? I have to go back and have a look at that.
No. Oh,
No.
the video is the video
Yeah,
of
the
me
video.
is available.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not the
that's
competition.
that's available still.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, Cindy is our lovely assistant and moderator, Cindy. I'm sure that she'll do a little bit digging and see if we can find that video and get it posted on there as well. So, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you for going through that. I can't answer everyone's questions. Unfortunately, it's interesting when you were talking about the Brexit, we used to call it the B word for a really long period of time, but then COVID, sort of shat all over that anyway as well. So we kind of moved on from Brexit a little bit, but there were so many people, UK sellers, and even though it was a UK decision, please guys, no politics, no arguments. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. But even though it was a UK decision, decision for it to happen, essentially it was awful at the time, and the pandemic kind of skirted over that. Literally, people I know lost millions of pounds overnight, and the trouble was in this
In what way? How did they lose the money?
that were selling from the UK into Europe without borders, without custom checks, without limits, without restrictions, without anything like that whatsoever. We thought genuinely and probably a little bit naively at the time that Amazon, and I don't blame Amazon for this, their hands were tied. There was too much red tape. There is too much red tape politically involved with this. So I don't blame Amazon. I don't see what else they could have done. But we were kind of all thinking that it wasn't just going to switch off and that Amazon would have a plan, to save us all. But literally, 31st of December of whatever date it was, 2009, or whenever we actually Brexited, people literally, their business, I mean, it switched off overnight. People lost millions, and it was very devastating for a lot of people. And I think the only kind of saving grace for a lot of UK sellers was the pandemic when it came along, and it really helped cushion the blow for a lot of those UK sellers. But and we're not really, there's no solution for it now still, apart
well, I mean, so
pan-European.
being based in the UK, you can still get products fairly easily into another part of Europe, which will then allow you to participate in the rest of pan-EU, which is pretty much everyone but you guys in Britain. And that to me is one of the biggest opportunities on the marketplace. For me, it had another level of complexity because I was shipping my products from the US to the UK. So during Brexit and all of that, all those borders checks, all those custom rules, they were even a lot more complex than it is if I was living in the UK. It would be a lot easier. And then shipping doubled in cost and all of those kind of things, which are not really something that would impact someone who is living in the UK right now, who still wants to do it. I still think that's honestly one of the biggest opportunities in the entire FBA space. And I say this to all the time when I speak to either people in my mentorship or just, anyone, when I speak to people who are based in Europe or in the UK, when they're doing Amazon, the opportunity of just doing wholesale throughout Europe with pan FBA, even the way it is right now, is, in my opinion, still probably the biggest opportunity in the whole of FBA.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've just recently covered that selling model in our own training mentorship in the Hive. And one of the partners, training partners in that, Matthew Wright, one of our other business partners, that is his model. You know, that's predominantly his model. So this will be music to his ears. Hopefully he's not listening and I'm not going to have to spend the next 24 hours listening to how you confirmed that he was right. And, you know, with that big opportunity, only joking, guys, because it is such a mad opportunity. And what's really funny, such a big opportunity, is nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. We've got a full module covering this in the Hive, guys. And nobody's doing it.
And it's such a good, especially when you're speaking to suppliers and when you're speaking to brand owners. And again, part of the reason that I say that the UK and Europe is such an amazing opportunity, the amount, when you speak to a brand owner or a distributor here in the States, the amount of calls and the amount of time they get bothered by e-commerce sellers compared to what's happening in Europe is probably like 100 to 1. So you have all these distributors, all these suppliers, all these brand owners in Europe who don't get harassed like crazy by Amazon sellers. So they're just raw, untapped potential there. And then you have the added benefit that you're telling them, not only can you bring their products to market or online, but you can put it in many different countries all throughout Europe. You're going to get their products into France, into Germany, into Spain, throughout the UK. It's just such an amazing, amazing opportunity. And if I personally lived in the UK right now, it's what I would be focusing on 100% effort.
There you go. Golden nugget, knowledge bomb there from Larry. You heard it there from the horse's mouth. Biggest opportunity. And that's the thing. It's always finding that untapped opportunity. I'm a big believer, as soon as everyone starts talking about something, you see those screenshots popping up in the Facebook groups and things, then start looking for something else, because that's the time you kind of have to start adapting and evolving. There we go. Thanks, Cindy. She's found it. She's like a bloodhound, honestly. Cindy is. She will find whatever's on there. Thanks for posting that. So that sounds like that's a fantastic watch for anyone. So we talked about how you started. We've talked about the challenges that you face, how you manage risk, those entrepreneurial skills. Let's talk about what's happening in the US in the next couple of days. Well, thankfully, it's a leap year, so we've got an extra day to deal with it. But from the 1st of March, there's some pretty big changes. We've been a little bit quiet about it because it is one of those we don't truly know what it's going to be 100% until you do it. Of course, we don't know what impact it's going to have until you do it. Could it just be something sucking up these extra fees, and because everybody's on board, everybody lifts their prices? That's probably very wishful thinking.
Everyone loves to say that whenever Amazon does a change to screw over sellers, or whenever they raise their fees, or whenever there's something that we have to deal with, everyone likes to say, oh, well, everyone's just going to raise their prices and the consumer's going to pay for it. That never happens.
No, I know.
I'm still waiting for people to raise their prices from things that happened 5 years ago. That just doesn't happen, unfortunately. Or if it does, it happens on such a delayed window. But you said it. There's a lot of big changes coming with Amazon, especially 2-3 days from now, March 1st, at least here in the States. They have these new inbound placement fees, which are crazy, and just another one of these things that you have to figure out how to work around and deal with. And it's definitely coming to the UK too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could not see how it wouldn't be in some form. Yes, geographically, we're very different spaces. A lot of the delivery costs, and the reason why, obviously, all of these shipping charges are come into place, do not have as big an impact in the UK to its geographical size, of course. But things like, because it's not just the shipping fees, which we'll cover in a sec, but it's also the low inventory fees. There is all of these different, Amazon. And again, I'm a big believer. Sometimes these guys shout me down, and I don't blame Amazon a lot of the time for the stuff that they do. I really don't think Jeff sits there in a boardroom with his team and saying, right, how can we best screw over Amazon sellers right now? What's the best way to do it? They are a business, pure and simple. If you want to sell on Amazon, you play by their rules, you get exposure to a market that is unparalleled in the world as it stands. So we have to take what they give us, essentially to a certain extent. Yes, you've got to adapt and everything like that as well. But this, from what I can see, as someone that will be impacted, I know the majority won't for the moment. This has got to be logistically and fee wise one of the biggest impacts in recent times for sellers, right? The
Yes.
impact it's going to have on people's businesses.
And it's not just the fees. I think the impact are more where, for example, you'd have a lot of sellers operating, they have a nice flow happening every week. They have one shipment that they've created. It takes them a week to prep it. And they're in the process of, every 5 days, every 7 days, they're getting one big shipment out to Amazon FBA. Well, now Amazon is going to say, well, now take that one shipment that maybe you put on a pallet, maybe you put on one truck. It's all simple. It's all the same labels. Now take that one shipment and split it up into 4 different shipments. If the locations are not that spread apart, there might be a little increase in the added fees of all the shipping and stuff like that. But now your whole workflow is totally different. Things that you used to put on one truck, or if you're someone shipping out a pallet a week, for example, well, now that pallet has to go to 3 or 4 different warehouses. Well, now you can't send the pallet. So what are you going to do? Now you're going to go back to SPD. Now you're going to send 3 pallets to 3 locations instead of 1 pallet to 1 location. It's all of those kind of things that just add another level of complexity to it. Obviously, there's that low inventory fee as well, which still people don't really quite understand how they're going to deal with it unless they're actually dealing with it. So just all of those things that you have to kind of figure out how to just work with, play the hand you are dealt, and just keep moving forward.
I think Amazon have, from what I've seen in their communications with this, don't shoot me again, guys, but I do think they've been more unusually transparent about these fees and publishing them ahead of time. As sellers that have been around for a certain period of time, how many times have we been rugged with certain things that we didn't know was going to happen? We thought was going to be a big thing. It turns out it wasn't, and vice versa. But with this, I do think they know the impact. They've been transparent on the fees, with the exception of the low inventory fee. That is definitely one I don't think we're going to know until we get those final transaction reports and you get people like yourself breaking it down and giving a bit of an indication of how you can manage it moving forward. But for anyone that doesn't know, there's going to be some shipping changes. If you wouldn't mind just, briefly saying, the difference is obviously there's going to be more split shipments and you're going to have different options. It's going to be almost a little bit of a pay to play model a little bit as well. So, Amazon have kindly given us the opportunity to just pay for it and bypass it all to a certain extent.
Kindly, or if you don't pay them, you're going to have to pay your shippers and deal with the.
You're going to pay in one way or
you're
another.
Going to pay
right?
in one way or another, and that's actually what I said in a recent video that I made breaking down all of these fees. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work in the UK because, of course, the UK is different, but in the US. There is right now in your Seller Central settings, there is a toggle in the settings menu that's called inventory placement, and you can basically turn it on or turn it off. And when you turn it on, Amazon charges you a ridiculously expensive fee, but what that fee does is when you create a shipment, it allows everything to go to one location. When you turn it off, you bypass the fee, but Amazon may or may not, every time you're creating a shipment, they might give you 3, 4, 5 locations. Sometimes they give you 1 location. There's really no rhyme or reason, but it can happen. So they are taking that whole concept, and instead of having it be a option that lives in your settings menu, they are now putting it at the start of every shipment as you're creating it. So now when you create a shipment, there's going to be an option. Do you want all the items in the shipment to go to 1 location? Well, that costs this much. Do you want it to go to 3 locations and that costs this much? Do you want it to be free? Well, then it's free, then it's free, but it's going to be 4+ different shipments that you have to create going to 4 different locations. And like I said, that can just create a logistical nightmare. And like I was speaking to people who ship a lot. One of my good friends sends over 250,000 units to Amazon per month. And for them, to the Amazon warehouses, if you were to drive there, it's maybe like a 15-minute drive from where their warehouse is. But now Amazon wants, for the luxury of being able to send all their products to their one nearest warehouse, which they're doing now for free, Amazon wants to charge them another $80,000 per month, which comes net right off of your fees, $80,000 per month, to continue sending all of your products here. If you don't want it, no problem. But now, instead of sending 200,000 units to one location, send 50,000 here, 50,000 there, 50,000 there. And it became a nightmare. But this guy was telling me, you know, over my dead body, no matter what, I don't care what I have to do, I'm not going to pay $80,000 per month just to ship something 10 minutes away from where this stuff is located. It makes no sense. So he's trying to figure out ways around it. And he is fortunately someone who has enough volume where if he now needs to send 4 separate truckloads to 4 locations, as opposed to 4 trucks to one location, he can do it. But the amount of sellers that have that option are few and far between. So the only sellers that this really doesn't affect are giant mega sellers, like way bigger than me even, because it affects me. But if you can, you know, if you're shipping out 4, 5, 6 truckloads a month, then maybe you can figure out a way where it doesn't affect you. Or the smallest sellers who are doing SPD, who are shipping out just boxes every week. And if you're doing that using partnered carrier, it really doesn't matter if you're sending a couple here, but a couple of there. But that's it. That's the only one who's really not affected. The biggest of the biggest, the smallest of the smallest. Everyone else in the middle is going to have to figure out how to deal with this.
That's life, though. Unfortunately, as well, a little bit as well. It's generally the people in the middle, in whatever circumstances of life, are always generally the worst. You know, that's the worst place to be in life in general. But what's interesting, I find actually with this is it's very complex. It's, you know, there's so many different variables. People with different types of business models. If you are high volume, low margin seller, you are going to be impacted very differently to someone who is high margin, lower volume seller. Those people are probably just going to be able to suck it and see, absorb that 27-cent, you know, inventory placement fee, and not think too much, you know, about it. We are high margin sellers, and you know, we are of the mind, you know, we will just absorb the fee. It's as simple as that. We don't want to fanny around. We don't want to fuss around with different splits. And
now, I will say that might be wrong to give you some advice in your personal scenario, especially considering well, you're probably talking about the U.S. business and not
U.S. business, not the UK.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, if this is one of the first times ever where Amazon announces a new fee that if you figure it out and if you do it right, you may actually save money and pay less in fees. Because what Amazon has also done, they have said, you know, we're going to introduce this fee. It's going to be 30, 40 cents a unit. At the same time, we're also lowering our FBA fees by an average of 20 cents. So it kind of washes each other out. However, if you're paying the big fee, and then the FBA fee is lower, you're still coming out of pocket a little. But if you can find out a way to run the business using the free model, which splits it to 4+ locations, and you can find a nice rhythm doing that without paying anything in extra fees, and then on top of that, you're saving the 20-cent FBA fee, which is going to be regardless, that's just for everyone out there, then that's one possible scenario where this particular change might be for the best. But again, those use cases are like few and far between.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's going to be something that's going to take a certain period of time of looking back. You know, when you get your first week's data and you see how you affect, then you wait for a month to see how, you know, how that changes everything. Then you got to wait for 3 months before you make any changes, volume as you move through it. It's something, unfortunately, we're going to have to feel our way through. And we're probably not going to have a true answer of, you know, what is the best model. And again, there's going to be so many variables based on different. Unfortunately, guys, it's going to be one of those, you're not going to get one straight answer from one guru content creator. It is going to be a case of test yourself, test different things. Would you recommend this, Larry? Doing some shipments based on the higher fee, some on the lower fee, doing the analysis afterwards and seeing what is working out best for you?
I think everything is honestly on a case-by-case basis, depending on the individual seller and how they're operating and how much they're shipping and what they're shipping on and what their location is. Because like I said, if you're located in the UK, it might be a totally different scenario than being here in the States. One really good question that just popped into my head. So I know that they're introducing the lower FBA fees to offset the inbound placement fees that start on March 1st here in the States. I know that doesn't happen in the UK for a while. So I'm wondering, are our UK accounts going to get the same 20-cent average discount? And they're not even introducing this fee for, a couple of months or for the foreseeable
I think it's
future.
June. Is it June that it's coming into the UK, I think? Or the fee changes? I can't remember. I know we're not immediately impacted by.
Right, but so that's what I'm wondering. So, but are they still going to give you guys the FBA discount fee, or are they going to push that back as well?
Who knows? There's been a couple of big changes, and again, I don't know if we've had pushback in the UK. So I don't know if you guys have had it as well, which is going to be a massive disruption for a lot of experienced sellers. We always call it having the golden goose account, the account that allows us to have full disbursements in our account 24 hours a day without having to pay for it. In the UK, that's something when I'm a newer seller in the US, only 18 months, something like that. So I've had the 2-week disbursement account there, but in the UK we have the golden goose accounts. But we were told
nice.
Has that finished in the US as well? Because that's been gradually phased out in the UK.
I'm pretty sure that on my US accounts, I can initiate a disbursement manually every 24 hours without paying an extra fee.
Yeah, it's everybody as an Amazon seller has the ability to do that, but it's whether or not you can empty the full balance. So with my
there's always a reserve. Yeah.
So with our current UK account, we have the ability to empty the full balance every 24 hours. And Amazon recently put a stop to that, saying it was going to end at the end of the year, but it didn't give people fair notice. So a lot of people that were leveraged, a lot of people, that were, buying suppliers, had to pay suppliers. It actually went to the government for them to oversee it. So Amazon has given us an extension, but it is something that's going to be happening. And I didn't know. I didn't know if that was something that whether or not you never had it in the US or not. I'm not 100% sure.
No, we had it in the beginning. You used to be able to clear out all of the funds. And then I would say several years ago, Amazon started holding back I think it's a 14-day rolling sales average that they're just holding over. And the reason that they did that is probably for a good reason, because there was a lot of people who would defraud the system.
Yeah.
They would list a lot of products for sale, a lot of expensive products, FBM, money would come in. They would never ship the products. They would withdraw that money from Amazon right away. Customer would say, hey, I never received my item. Please give me a refund. Well, guy's now gone out of business. The money's been withdrawn. No way to refund that money. And that's few bad apples. And that's why everyone has to pay the price.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something that ultimately is for the seller's protection. And, that's something we've talked about for a long time. So I'm just wondering, with this big change with the golden goose accounts being reduced, whether Amazon has taken pity on our sellers and are not going to give us too many more big changes in the next couple of months. But maybe that's just wishful thinking, because I like to live in hope sometimes.
Me too.
Sometimes borders on denial sometimes.
I am a forever optimist, so that's always always my default mindset. But I just know with Amazon, they're definitely not taking pity on the sellers. Everything they do is for their best interest, or it's something that a government is forcing them into, or it's sometimes for a customer's best interest or what's
Yes.
best for the customer. It is never, ever what's best for the user. I will say I am hopeful eventually, because there's a lot of issues with Amazon here in the States and the government coming after them and antitrust stuff. I am hopeful, and for the longest time have said, I think there will come a day where Amazon themselves is going to take a step back from being an actual seller. And that's going to be very good for everyone. And, again, I'm optimist, but I still see that happening.
Yeah, I mean that the chatter on that went really quiet for a period of time. It was a lot of talk that was about that at the moment, and the choice that Amazon most think will have in front of them at some point is either some sort of back-end buy box. They stop being sellers themselves, competing with third-party sellers. One of the ideas I heard being chucked about is they would have two different websites. I could never see that happening.
No.
One for Amazon, one for third-party sellers. So it possibly, it could be one of those things that does very much go in the favor of third parties at some point in the future, but we shall have to wait and see what happens with that. And again, it could be something, although it's a US issue, it's not something that affects UK sellers essentially. But Amazon, I say this to my guys, Amazon is such a big machine. They try not to make as many individual changes to their model and their platform. Even in global different marketplaces, they try and keep the model as similar as they can for logistical and operational reasons as well. So even if something like that, whilst it wouldn't directly impact UK sellers, they may well roll out something similar to keep it in line with the global model, right?
Yep. And I would also say that for some reason, European governments have a lot more sway over Amazon, at least in the European markets. They're able to get Amazon to change things and to be more fair, and to do a lot of things that for some reason our government here in the US can't get Amazon to do.
Yeah, absolutely. As a UK US seller who has come a cropper for US policy, I was telling you beforehand, for a private label product, I can absolutely assure it is easier to get certain things done in the UK versus the US due to I don't know if it's governmental restrictions. I don't know if it's state restrictions. I don't know, whatever it is, but there are certain challenges that UK and European sellers do not have, essentially, when it comes to versus the US. Right, just before we go, Larry, because I am really conscious of your time, I want to be totally respectful of it.
No worries.
If you wouldn't mind, because one of the big impacts and one of the things that you're known for is creating the 2D workflow software as well. And for anyone that doesn't know what it is, what is it? How will it help with this situation? And, is it something you mentioned beforehand that potentially this affects you from a good point of view in the short term, but it might have a negative impact on your software business and creation moving forward?
Right. So I will tell you guys first how prior to 2D workflow. So I originally built a software for my own business. I had no intention of building it and releasing it to the public. I used it for years and years in my own warehouses before ever even dreaming up the idea of offering it to the masses. But basically, here's how my workflow would work in my warehouses. We would put together a large shipment. The guys would take the products, they would prep them, and then instead of just putting the items on a pallet, they would then have to, after they were done prepping the items, they would have to put the items back down on the warehouse floor. They would have a pen and pad. They would manually write down the box content. For example, SKU number 1, we have 10 boxes of 20. SKU number 2, we have 10 boxes of 12, whatever it is. They would manually write down the expiration date, because then at the end of every shipment, Amazon now has put this in the beginning of every shipment, which is even crazier, but that's another story. But at the end, when you were done prepping all the items for your shipment, you would have to go into Amazon. You would have to manually, through a web form or through an upload, enter all your box content, how everything is packed, what the expiration date is on every item. Only then would you get your box labels. And then you would have to go back into your warehouse where all your items that you prepped, or in my case, they were laid out on the warehouse floor. And we would have to match up box label number 1 with box number 1, box label number 10 with box number 10. And that process added, we had this nice flow where we were putting together big shipments. And at the end of every shipment, this was a process that took my whole team almost a full day. Like our full Friday was spent matching up box labels to boxes, doing box content. It was very inefficient. And that's the reason why I created 2D Workflow. And what it allowed the guys in my warehouse to do is pack, prep, label, ship, all of that kind of stuff much faster. And now they can take an item, they get labels for it, they prep it, the box label comes out right away, they put it on the box, that box goes on a pallet, the item is 100% done. There's no more sorting things out in the warehouse. There's no more having to come back to boxes or items at the end of every shipment to match up box labels to boxes. And it just made that process so much smoother. And then another one of my personal pain points before I built 2D Workflow was I was kind of married to my warehouse in a sense where whenever we created a shipment, either myself or one of my partners, we would have to be there to print out item labels for our workers. And then they would sort all the different products in a shipment. And I remember I would print out labels. I would cut them out with a scissor. I would staple the different SKUs of labels together. And I would put, here's a stack of labels for product A, here's a stack of labels for product B, so on and so forth. But I would physically have to be there to assign them, to tell them what items to do. Here are the labels for them. Here are how I want these things packed. And it would almost be to the point where if myself or one of my partners went away on vacation, our operations would almost come to a halt because there was no one there at a higher level to give out those assignments, print those labels. And those were the main 2 pain points I had when I created 2D Workflow. It now acts as my warehouse manager. So I can make a shipment. It's going to give my workers the instructions. It'll tell them which items they need to are in the shipment, where to find them, how to prep them at the touch of a button. It'll give them the labels for those items. They'll enter the box content right away. And it just makes that part really, really simple, really, really efficient. And for people who are sending a lot of stuff to FBA, this literally gives you the ability, if you're right now weekly able to produce 5,000 units, this will help you produce 7,000 or 8,000 units. If you're shipping out 500 units a week based on your current operation, this will help you do in that same time frame 700 or 800. And it's just going to make your life as the owner a lot easier, to where you're not married to your preppers, to where you don't have to be there telling them what to do, printing the labels. A lot of people don't want their preppers going into Seller Central and doing all of that kind of stuff. So that was the main reason that I built the tool to make box content a lot easier. And then it had a lot of other tertiary benefits, like shipments with 2D barcodes are received at Amazon faster. We eliminated a lot of mistakes that preppers would make, or sometimes we would put the wrong labels on the wrong stack of items, that kind of stuff. It would give us the ability to track the production of our workers, see who's doing what, making sure everyone is, working and producing as they should be. And in regards to the new fees and the new splits that's happening, one of the new features that we came out with, and it works in the UK too, even if it has nothing to do with fees, but there will be times where you make a shipment and Amazon wants you to send it to 3 different locations, let's say Doncaster, Swansea, Peterborough, whatever it is. They're splitting it up into 3 shipments. We have a new optimized feature that lets you press a button and get a shipment where Amazon is suggesting you ship it to 3 different locations. We have the ability to force it in most cases all into one shipment, all to the one FC of your choice, which has been very, very beneficial to us and to our users. And I would say the only downside of that is eventually Amazon is going to change their inbound API. They're probably going to plug up this loophole. But I mean, as is always the case with Amazon, if we can do this for the next 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, however long we can do it, we will. However long we can avoid paying these inbound placement fees, we will. And just a very beneficial tool for anyone who is shipping anything of any quantity to Amazon. I would say unless you're just shipping out a couple of boxes a week, you may not need it, unless those inbound placement fees are already in effect in your market. But anyone who's sending products often to FBA centers, check out 2D Workflow, because I think the 97 US bucks that we charge per month is far going to outweigh any inbound placement fees that you would incur.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was going to be the question that I was unsure of before this call. So for anybody that is a US seller, whether or not 2D Workflow would still force that change with the new inbound placement fees. And
It would.
well,
It would. It doesn't work in every single scenario. Like, for example, you cannot merge or combine oversized items with standard items or hazmat items or things like that, regular, standard Amazon exceptions. But yes, because Amazon's API works differently than creating shipments on Seller Central. It always had, even with the current inventory placement system that exists today, we are still able to force everything to one location without having to opt into the inbound placement fees. Furthermore, we're able to do it in a fully compliant way. We're not doing anything that's against terms of service or anything like that. It's just the way their API works currently. Now, I know for a fact they're changing their API. They want to make it function exactly the way it's going to function on Seller Central. But who knows when they're going to do that. And even if we can, save people money on these fees for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, it's going to be a big win, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't know, even when the API change occurs, there might be a different workaround at that point. There might be something else that that can be implemented at that time. So I think very much when you are an Amazon seller, you do have to make hay while the sun shines, and you have to take advantage of what is available to you at that period of time. You touched on it earlier. Longevity is not a coincidence with being an Amazon seller. You have to have that ability to adapt, evolve, and move with the times on Amazon. And we are going to see, guys, I've talked about this for a really long time. COVID saved some of these big changes from coming into place. This stuff was already going to be happening, and or some of it was going to be happening before then. It was just Amazon could not make the changes due to the increased demand that they had as effect of the pandemic. So this stuff was going to happen anyway. So, and one thing we always say is selling on Amazon today is not the same as it was yesterday, and it certainly won't be the same as it is tomorrow. So get used to that fact. And if you cannot get used to this fact, it might not be for you, unfortunately. So I hate to be the person that says it, but
well said.
Yeah, it's we're those type of gurus, I'm afraid. Or you can just pay us $1,000 and we'll feed you a bunch of crap. It's up to you, whatever you prefer. But the reality of the truth and the situation, that is exactly what it is. So shameless plug time. You've dedicated so much of your time to us this evening. I really, really appreciate it. So if anyone wants to find you, I'm sure they can, where can they follow you? If anyone wants to sign up to 2D Workflow, is there some sort of trial period?
There is a
like that.
So on the website, there's a 14-day trial. I will hook up anyone on this call with an extended free 30-day trial. You can get it at 2D Workflow /VIP30. Nice. That's the code to get a free 30-day trial. Otherwise, you can find me on most social media platforms at Watch Me Amazon.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, Larry. Thank you for spending so much time with us, explaining what's happening, telling us so much about yourself. There were some real golden nuggets and hot tips that were spoken about them for anyone with eagle ears, and, telling us about these changes that are occurring, because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of people talking about it. So either people don't have the experience or understanding of what's happening, or maybe we're all just sticking our heads in the sand. I don't know.
So I think this is one of the first times, specifically with the new inbound placement fees. Those are pretty understandable. I think a lot of people are not talking about that one because they don't know that softwares like 2D Workflow exist, and there's really not much to talk about, in a sense where they think there's nothing really you can do about it. You either pick the cheap option, the expensive option, that's it. They don't know things like 2D Workflow exist that can help with that. So obviously I am trying to get the word out on that. In regards to the new low inventory fee, I think this is one of the only times that I've seen such a big change come to Amazon. And you're right, people are not talking about it, but this is like one of the first times I've seen people not talking about it because no one really quite gets it. No one really quite understands how it works. And I mean, the way I look at it in an absolute worst case scenario, so we do wholesale replenishables. Every time we buy a new product, we always test it. And this is one of the biggest question marks with that new inventory, low inventory fee, is when you're testing something for the first time and you're sending in 24 or 36 units, how is that low inventory fee going to apply? And I said to myself, all right, worst case scenario, it's going to cost an extra 20 bucks, 30 bucks to test a new product for the first time. You bought 24 units, you think it's going to sell, it doesn't sell. Yeah. You now are paying an extra fee, an extra 50 cents or whatever it is for those 24 units. And you have to pay an extra 20, 30 bucks to test an item. So be it, it is what it is. But aside from that, if you have a good inventory management system, which you guys are building, and you practice something that is called just-in-time inventory management or just-in-time replenishment, which is what these inventory systems are designed to do, then it really shouldn't affect you because you are replenishing before you really go into low inventory, and that should be good. It's just a big question mark with testing products. And yeah, no one's really talking about it because no one really knows exactly how it's going to play out.
No, it really is a case of that kind of patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time, not having too much inventory, but not going out of stock. It's finding that nice balance.
But that's our business model, so when you do wholesale, that's what we're trying to do on a day in and day out basis. I never buy a ton of inventory. I never go super deep on anything. Things that I buy consistently, I like to keep 2 months, 3 months worth of inventory. But my goal is to always get close to selling out without selling out, replenish just in time when I have, about a month's worth of left of inventory. So all of that should be golden with a good inventory management tool and with a good repricer, with repricer strategies. The only thing, and this is if you're a private label, you don't have to worry or deal with this kind of stuff. But for us arbitrage sellers or resellers, when we're bringing on new products and testing new listings, there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be a test it and see what happens. And, people like yourself, hopefully, I know you'll be keeping us updated, with your results and multiple people will as well. That's why these communities are so important for Amazon sellers. You're not on your own, guys. We're kind of all in it together. Yeah, we'd all kind of probably stab each other in the back if we could to get a sale, but let's we can all work this stuff out together anyway as well. Cindy, thank you so much. She has literally, everyone needs a Cindy in her life. She has posted your link tree, your YouTube channel, the offer for 2D workflow, and so thank you for Cindy. Really, really appreciate that. Larry,
you, Cindy.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a real pleasure talking to you and kind of diving down deep on anything, everything. If you can, at some point later in the year, we'd love to have you back to talk about maybe the impact of all this stuff. I'm not talking about next month, maybe closer Q3 to Q4, something like that.
It'll be my pleasure.
A bit more of the impact of everything of what's going to happen. So we'd love to have you back then if you've got the doubt to do it. Johnny says, shout out to Bstock. That's the inventory management software, the replenishable software that we're creating. It's predominantly for bundles, essentially, because that's, the predominant business of where we sit within the market as well. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure. Anyone that's watched, I'm sure you agree, give Larry a hand and really, make him, feel appreciated. We really do appreciate it for sure. So guys, I will see you next week. Usual time, 1 o'clock. I have a new guest with me. Do the usuals. If you're watching us on replay on YouTube, I'm the world's worst YouTuber. Please give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, show some love for Larry. Do whatever you need to do. Hit that subscribe button, and we really do appreciate it. So thanks everyone, guys. Take care. Larry, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to being back.
Take care. Bye.